All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Promotech. Thanks for tuning in. For years, foldable phones have looked like the future, but they've always carried a quiet compromise. The screen felt softer than a normal phone. The crease reminded you it was still experimental, and deep down, many buyers wondered how it would hold up after 2 or 3 years. The Galaxy Z Fold 8 might be the device where Samsung finally removes those doubts, and the changes behind it are more strategic than they look. Let's dive right into the video. Samsung's foldable journey has never really been about one huge upgrade. Instead, it's been a slow, almost invisible process of solving small problems that stop people from trusting foldables. And the first big clue with the Galaxy Z Fold 8 is the display itself. Leaks suggest Samsung is experimenting with something called dual-layer ultra-thin glass. Now that might sound like technical jargon, but the idea behind it is surprisingly simple. Earlier foldables used a single flexible glass layer with a plastic-like protective surface. It worked, but when you touched the screen, it always felt slightly soft, almost like you had to be careful. With the Fold 8, Samsung appears to be stacking 2 ultra-thin glass layers while refining the OLED panel underneath. That means the screen doesn't just become stronger, it feels closer to a normal smartphone display. And that small change might solve one of the biggest psychological barriers stopping people from buying foldables. But this leads directly into the second hidden upgrade, and it's something most people never pay attention to: the hinge. In previous Fold models, Samsung focused on making the hinge thinner and closing the gap between the two halves of the phone. The Fold 8 seems to shift the focus towards something more important: how the display bends. Instead of forcing the screen into a tight fold, the new hinge design spreads the pressure across a wider curve. In simple terms, the glass bends more naturally. That means less long-term stress on the display and potentially a crease that becomes much harder to notice over time. And when you compare this to older foldables, you start to see what Samsung is really doing. They're not just building a cooler gadget anymore. They're trying to build a foldable that feels normal after years of daily use. Now, quick side note for the community, because a lot of you asked how I keep track of all these industry leaks and early reports without getting lost in the noise. Recently, I've been using a tool called Walverse, also known as Wolver. It basically gathers tech leaks, industry reports, and device updates into one clean feed, so you can see the real developments without scrolling through hundreds of articles. If you follow smartphone tech closely, it honestly makes keeping up with everything way easier. Now back to the Fold 8, because the internal hardware tells an even bigger story. Yes, the phone is expected to run the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chip, which obviously brings more power. But power isn't actually the interesting part here. Cooling is. Foldables have always struggled with heat because most of the processing components sit on one side of the phone. That creates a small thermal bottleneck, especially during gaming, multitasking, or heavy camera use. With the Fold 8, Samsung appears to be redistributing internal components across both halves of the device. That gives the phone more surface area to spread heat and allows the cooling system to work more efficiently. So instead of the Fold behaving like a powerful phone that occasionally throttles under stress, it could finally perform like a true flagship all the time. And then there's the camera. Rumors suggest Samsung might introduce a 200-megapixel main sensor. But the real story isn't just the sensor itself. It's how Samsung is slowly turning the Fold into a content creation device. When the phone unfolds, that large internal screen becomes a powerful tool for framing shots, reviewing photos, and even editing videos in real time. Samsung's camera software has been quietly evolving to take advantage of that larger display, which means the Fold series is slowly becoming something different from a normal phone. It's starting to behave like a pocket tablet that just happens to have flagship cameras attached. And before we go further, quick community moment. I noticed something interesting in the channel analytics. More than 70% of people watching these videos aren't subscribed yet. If you enjoy breakdowns like this, where we go beyond the marketing slides and actually talk about what these upgrades mean long-term, consider subscribing and joining the community. This channel is really about people who love understanding the details behind the tech. Now here's where things get interesting. When you step back and look at everything together, the stronger display structure, the smarter hinge mechanics, the improved cooling layout, and the camera workflow built around the large screen. The Galaxy Z Fold 8 starts to look less like a yearly upgrade and more like a turning point. Because once foldables stop feeling fragile, once performance matches traditional flagship phones, and once the large screen actually improves how people work, watch, and create content, then foldables stop being experimental devices. They start becoming the new standard. And if Samsung really pulls this off with the Fold 8, the real question might not be whether foldables will replace normal smartphones. The real question might be how long traditional phone designs can survive once people experience a device that can transform in their pocket. Take care and stay safe. I'll see you in the next one soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.